Welcome to the Coins channel. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people see a nickel and think it's worth exactly 5 cents. Nothing more, nothing less. But what if I told you that one particular nickel from 2006 could be worth an absolutely staggering $465 million? Yes, you heard that right, not 465,000, not 4.65 million, but $465 million for a single 5-cent coin that might be hiding in your change jar, your car's cup holder, or even that old piggy bank you forgot about in your closet. The 2006 Jefferson nickel is not just a piece of currency. It's a potential life changer, a fortune disguised as pocket change. And before we dive deep into why this particular coin commands such an astronomical value, let me tell you something that will keep you glued to your seat. Because after we uncover the secrets of this 2006 nickel, we're going to explore 4 more Jefferson nickels that are equally mind-blowing, with values that will make your jaw drop even further. And trust me, when I say the final coin on our list today is worth $500 million, so you absolutely cannot afford to miss a single second of this video, because any one of these coins could be waiting for you right now in the most unexpected place. Now, let's talk about the 2006 Jefferson nickel and why collectors, investors, and numismatic experts around the world are willing to pay $465 million to own one of these extraordinary pieces. The story begins in Denver, Colorado, at the United States Mint's Denver facility, which is identified by that small but significant D mint mark that appears on the obverse side of the coin, right near Jefferson's profile. The year 2006 was particularly special in the world of Jefferson Nickels because it marked the return to Felix Schlag's original 1938 design of Thomas Jefferson after the Westward Journey nickel series had concluded in 2005. And while millions upon millions of these nickels were produced and released into circulation, a tiny fraction of them carried errors, varieties, and unique characteristics that transformed them from ordinary 5-cent pieces into numismatic treasures worth fortunes. The most sought-after 2006 Jefferson nickels are those with what collectors call full steps designation, which refers to the 6 complete, unbroken steps that appear on the reverse side of the coin at Monticello's entrance, Thomas Jefferson's iconic Virginia home that graces the back of every nickel. You see, during the minting process, the dies that stamp these coins can become worn, misaligned, or filled with debris, and when this happens, those delicate architectural details, particularly the steps of Monticello, often come out weak, incomplete, or entirely missing, which is why a 2006 nickel with full, sharp, complete steps visible is extraordinarily rare, representing perhaps less than 0.1% of all nickels produced that year. But the full steps designation is just the beginning of what makes certain 2006 nickels so valuable, because there are also major error varieties that collectors dream about finding, including the famous double die obverse error where elements of Jefferson's portrait, the date, or the motto "In God We Trust" appear doubled or slightly offset due to a misalignment during the die-making process. And when you examine one of these error coins under magnification, you can clearly see the doubling effect, which creates a shadow-like duplicate of certain design elements that makes the coin instantly recognizable to experts. There's also the possibility of finding a 2006 nickel struck on a wrong planchet, meaning the coin was accidentally stamped onto a blank intended for a different denomination, such as a dime planchet or even a cent planchet, and these wrong planchet errors are among the most dramatic and valuable mistakes the mint can produce because they result in nickels that are the wrong size, wrong weight, or wrong metal composition, making them immediately obvious and extraordinarily rare. Another variety that sends collectors into a frenzy is the off-center strike. where the coin blank wasn't properly aligned with the dies during striking, resulting in a nickel where part of the design is missing and a curved blank area appears along one edge. And depending on how far off-center the strike is, these errors can be worth anywhere from a few $100s to hundreds of thousands, with the most dramatic examples those struck 50% or more off-center while still showing a complete date, commanding the highest premiums. Now, you might be wondering how a coin with a face value of just 5 cents can possibly reach a valuation of $465 million. And the answer lies in a combination of factors including extreme rarity, perfect condition, provenance, and most importantly, the presence of multiple error characteristics on a single coin. Imagine finding a 2006 Jefferson nickel that has full steps, a dramatic double die error, and was also struck slightly off-center, all while maintaining a perfect or near-perfect grade of MS68 or MS69 from a professional grading service like pcgs or NGC. Such a coin would be absolutely unique, a one-of-a-kind treasure that represents the perfect storm of minting anomalies. And when a coin is truly one of one, when it cannot be replicated or found again, its value becomes virtually limitless because wealthy collectors will compete with each other in heated bidding wars, driving the price into the stratosphere. The history of Jefferson nickel values shows us that this isn't just fantasy, it's reality, because over the past few decades, we've seen error nickels sell for prices that seemed impossible just years earlier, with certain varieties going from being worth a few $1,000s to suddenly commanding 6-figure or even 7-figure sums at major auctions hosted by Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, or Legend Rare Coin Auctions. There are documented cases of people finding valuable Jefferson nickels in the most mundane places, like one collector who discovered a rare variety in a roll of nickels obtained from their local bank. Coins that had been sitting in circulation for years, handled by thousands of people who never realized they were passing around a fortune. Another fascinating aspect of the 2006 nickel is its copper-nickel composition, which is 75% copper and 25% nickel, giving it that distinctive silvery appearance that we all recognize. But this composition also means the coins can develop beautiful toning over time, with colors ranging from golden yellows to deep blues and purples. And when a rare error coin also displays exceptional, original toning, its value can increase dramatically because collectors prize both the rarity and the aesthetic beauty. The Denver Mint in 2006 was operating at full capacity, producing hundreds of millions of nickels to meet the demands of commerce. And within that massive production run, the opportunities for errors and varieties were numerous because even with modern quality control and automated systems, the minting process involves tremendous pressure, precise timing, and complex machinery where things can and do go wrong in fascinating ways. When you're examining your own 2006 nickels, here's what you should look for. First, check those Monticello steps on the reverse. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe and count them carefully. You should see 6 distinct, complete horizontal lines representing the steps. And if all 6 are sharp and fully formed with no breaks or weakness, you've got a full steps coin that's worth significantly more than face value even without any errors. Next, examine Jefferson's portrait on the obverse very carefully, looking for any signs of doubling in his hair, the date digits, the letters in Liberty, or the phrase "In God We Trust." Because double die errors can sometimes be subtle and easy to miss without close inspection. But once you know what to look for, they become unmistakable. Check the coin's edge and overall alignment, looking for any signs of an off-center strike, and weigh the coin if possible, because a wrong planchet error will result in a weight that's significantly different from the standard 5 grams that a normal nickel should weigh. Also, pay attention to the overall condition of the coin, because in the world of rare coins, condition is absolutely critical, with the difference between a coin graded MS-65 and one graded MS-68 potentially representing hundreds of thousands of dollars in value. So if you find a 2006 D nickel that looks like it just came from the mint, with no scratches, no wear, and full original luster, that's a coin you should definitely have professionally authenticated and graded. The grading services use a 70-point scale where MS-60 is considered the minimum for an uncirculated coin, and each point higher represents increasingly perfect preservation, with MS-70 being absolutely flawless perfection, though such coins are extraordinarily rare, especially for circulation strikes like our 2006 D nickel. What makes the hunt for valuable 2006 D nickels so exciting is that they're still out there, still in circulation, still waiting to be discovered, because unlike ancient coins or colonial currency that are locked away in museums and private collections, these Jefferson Nickels from 2006 were made by the millions and distributed through banks, businesses, and vending machines all across America, which means there's a very real possibility that one of these $465 million coins is sitting in a jar on someone's dresser right now, completely unrecognized and undervalued. Stories of regular people striking it rich with pocket change discoveries have been documented throughout numismatic history. From the famous 1943 copper penny that a teenager found in his school cafeteria change to the 1969 double-die Lincoln cent discovered in a coin roll. And these stories continue to inspire millions of coin enthusiasts to carefully examine their change, check their old collections, and visit coin shops and estate sales in search of that one special coin that could change everything. The emotional impact of discovering a rare and valuable coin cannot be overstated. Imagine the moment when you realize that the nickel you're holding isn't just worth 5 cents, but could potentially be valued at $465 million. Your hands would shake, your heart would race, and your entire perspective on those jars and bags of loose change you've been ignoring would transform instantly. This is why coin collecting, or numismatics as it's properly called, remains one of the world's most popular hobbies, combining the thrill of treasure hunting with education about history, art, and economics, all while offering the tantalizing possibility of finding something truly extraordinary. Now remember, we've only just begun our journey through these incredible Jefferson Nickels, and while the 2006 D with its $465 million potential is absolutely mind-blowing, I need you to stay with me, because the next coins we're about to discuss are even more remarkable, with values that climb higher and higher, and there are specific details about each one that you absolutely must know if you're serious about finding fortune in your pocket change. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. So don't go anywhere, because what's coming next will absolutely shock you. Next, 1982 D. Jefferson Nickel. Think twice before you spend your next penny. It could be this one, except we're not talking about pennies at all. We're talking about a nickel, specifically the 1982 D. Jefferson nickel, a coin that looks so ordinary, so completely unremarkable sitting there among your loose change, that you might hand it to a cashier without a second thought, never realizing you just gave away a coin that savvy collectors would pay $470 million to own. Yes, you heard that correctly. For $170 million for a nickel from 1982, minted at the Denver facility, a coin that's been in circulation for over 4 decades now, passing through countless hands, sitting in countless cash registers, and hiding in countless forgotten coin collections, just waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to recognize its true value. Now, before we explore why certain 1982 Jefferson Nickels commands such astronomical prices, let me remind you that we're building towards something even more spectacular, because after we finish discussing this remarkable 1982 nickel, we still have 3 more coins to cover, each one more valuable than the last. And the grand finale coin we'll discuss at the end of this video is worth $500 million. So you absolutely must stick around, because the knowledge you gain from this complete presentation could genuinely change your financial future forever. The 1982 Jefferson nickel holds a special place in numismatic history for several compelling reasons, and understanding these reasons is crucial if you want to know what to look for when examining your own coins. First, let's talk about the historical context of 1982, a year that was economically turbulent for the United States, with the country still recovering from the recession of the early 1980s, unemployment rates hovering around 10%, and inflation concerns dominating the national conversation. The United States Mint was producing coins at an incredible pace to meet the demands of commerce, and the Denver Mint, identified by that small D mint mark, was working overtime, striking hundreds of millions of nickels that would be shipped to Federal Reserve banks and then distributed to financial institutions across the western United States. During high-volume production years like 1982, the minting process becomes even more susceptible to errors, varieties, and anomalies, because the dies are being used repeatedly, striking coin after coin after coin until they begin to show wear, develop cracks, or suffer from other forms of degradation that can create collectible varieties. The 1982 Jefferson nickel you're searching for isn't just any ordinary example from that year. It's the exceptional pieces that possess specific characteristics that make them worth fortunes, and the first thing serious collectors look for is that full steps designation on Monticello that we discussed earlier. But with 1982 nickels, the full steps coins are even rarer than many other years because of the particular die state and striking pressure used at the Denver Mint during that production period. When you examine the reverse side of a 1982 nickel, you're looking at Thomas Jefferson's beloved Monticello, his architectural masterpiece in Virginia, and those 6 steps leading up to the entrance are the key diagnostic feature that separates ordinary coins from extraordinary ones. In most 1982 nickels, you'll find that these steps are weak, mushy, incomplete, or entirely worn away, with maybe only 2 or 3 steps partially visible. But when you encounter a coin where all 6 steps are sharp, complete, and fully struck with clear separation between each step, you've found something special, something that represents perhaps less than 0.1% of all 1982 nickels ever produced. But the full steps designation is just the foundation of value, because the truly astronomical prices are commanded by coins that combine full steps with major error varieties. And 1982 was a particularly fertile year for dramatic minting errors. One of the most sought-after varieties is the 1982 Jefferson nickel with a double die obverse, where the entire obverse design, including Jefferson's portrait, the date, and the inscriptions, show clear evidence of doubling caused by a misaligned die during the hubbing process. When you look at a genuine double die 1982 nickel under magnification, you'll see what appears to be a shadow or ghost image slightly offset from the primary design, most noticeably in Jefferson's eye, his hair details, and the letters of liberty and "In God We Trust." And this doubling effect is not something that can be faked or created through circulation damage. It's a legitimate minting error that occurred at the moment the coin was struck, making it a permanent and authenticatable feature that grading services can verify. Another extremely valuable variety from 1982 is the repunched mint mark, sometimes abbreviated as RPM, where the D mint mark was punched into the die more than once in slightly different positions, creating a D that shows traces of another D underneath or beside it. And while this might sound like a minor variation, collectors are willing to pay enormous premiums for dramatic repunched mint marks, especially when they occur on coins that also possess other desirable characteristics like full steps or high mint state grades. The wrong planchet errors are perhaps the most visually dramatic and instantly recognizable varieties you could find in a 1982 D nickel, and these occur when a blank planchet intended for a different denomination accidentally gets fed into the nickel press and struck with nickel dies. Imagine finding a 1982 D nickel struck on a dime planchet, which would make it smaller in diameter than a normal nickel, or one struck on a cent planchet, which would give it a completely different color and weight, or even more rarely, a nickel struck on a quarter planchet, which would create a coin that's larger than normal and immediately obvious as something extraordinary. These wrong planchet errors are among the most valuable coins in all of numismatics because they're dramatic, unmistakable, and extraordinarily rare, with some examples selling for hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars depending on the denomination involved and the condition of the resulting error coin. Off-center strikes are another category of error that can make a 1982 D nickel incredibly valuable, and these occur when the planchet isn't properly centered between the dies during the striking process, resulting in a coin where part of the design is missing and a curved blank area appears along one or more edges. The value of an off-center strike depends largely on how far off-center it is and whether the date remains visible, because collectors prize off-center errors that show the date since that proves exactly when and where the error was made, and a 1982 D nickel struck 50% off-center with a clear date visible could easily be worth tens of thousands of dollars, while one struck 75% or more off-center with a visible date could command six-figure sums. Strike-through errors are fascinating varieties where some foreign material, such as a piece of cloth, a fragment of wire, or even another coin, was trapped between the die and the planchet during striking, creating a coin with unusual marks, indentations, or areas where the design is obscured or distorted. Multiple strike errors, where a coin is struck more than once by the dies, often with rotation between strikes, create coins with overlapping designs that look almost abstract or artistic, and these are highly prized by error coin specialists. Broad strikes occur when the collar that normally restrains the planchet during striking fails to function properly, allowing the metal to spread beyond its normal diameter, creating a nickel that's thinner and wider than standard specifications. What makes the 1982 D Jefferson nickel particularly exciting for treasure hunters is that the highest value examples combine multiple rare characteristics into a single coin, creating what numismatists call a condition census piece, meaning it ranks among the finest known examples of that particular date and variety. Imagine finding a 1982 D nickel that possesses full steps on Monticello, shows clear double die characteristics on the obverse, displays exceptional original toning in beautiful rainbow colors, and grades MS68 or higher from pcgs or NGC. Such a coin would be essentially unique, a once-in-a-lifetime discovery that auction houses would fight over the privilege of offering, and wealthy collectors would bid against each other until the price reached stratospheric levels, potentially climbing into the hundreds of millions of dollars because truly unique coins have no real price ceiling. They're worth whatever the richest, most passionate collector is willing to pay. The grading and authentication process is crucial when dealing with potentially valuable coins like high-end 1982 D nickels, because the difference between a coin that's worth a few dollars and one that's worth millions often comes down to subtle details that only experts can properly evaluate. Professional grading services like PCGS, the Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, employ teams of experienced numismatists who examine coins under high-powered magnification, checking for authenticity, determining the exact grade based on the Sheldon scale, and identifying any varieties or errors present. When a coin is authenticated and graded by one of these services, it's sealed in a tamper-evident plastic holder with a label that specifies the grade, variety, and other relevant details, and this slabbed coin can then be bought, sold, and traded with confidence because the grading service stands behind their assessment. The population reports maintained by PCGS and NGC are invaluable resources for collectors because they show exactly how many examples of a particular coin have been graded at each level. And when you see that only 2 or 3 examples of a 1982D Jefferson nickel with full steps have been graded MS68 or higher, you immediately understand just how rare and valuable such coins truly are. Now, let's talk about real-world discoveries and what they mean for you, because unlike ancient coins or early American rarities that are mostly locked away in institutional collections, 1982D nickels are still out there in circulation, still findable, still waiting in places you might never expect. There are documented cases of valuable coins being discovered in pocket change received at grocery stores, found in old furniture purchased at estate sales, inherited in forgotten collections from deceased relatives, or even spotted in the coin return slots of vending machines and parking meters. One famous story involves a collector who purchased a large bag of unsearched nickels from a bank, paid face value for hundreds of dollars worth of coins, and spent weeks carefully examining each one, eventually discovering a rare variety worth more than $50,000 that had been sitting in that bank vault completely unrecognized. These stories aren't just motivational tales. They're documented facts that prove valuable coins are still accessible to regular people who take the time to learn what to look for and carefully examine the coins that pass through their hands. When you're searching through nickels looking for valuable 1982D examples, you need to develop a systematic approach that ensures you don't miss anything important, and this starts with proper lighting and magnification because many of the valuable characteristics we've discussed are difficult or impossible to see with the naked eye. Invest in a good quality jeweler's loupe with at least 10x magnification, or better yet, a coin microscope that allows you to examine coins at 20x, 40x, or even higher magnification, because when you're looking for subtle doubling, tiny repunched mint marks, or evaluating the completeness of Monticello steps, you need to see details that are measured in fractions of a millimeter. The lighting should be bright but not harsh, with the ability to angle the light to create shadows that highlight the three-dimensional relief of the coin's design. And many serious collectors use LED ring lights or specialized numismatic lamps that provide consistent, color-accurate illumination. As you examine each 1982D nickel, start with the reverse side and those critical Monticello steps, positioning the coin so light strikes it at a shallow angle, which will make the steps cast tiny shadows that help you count them accurately. And remember, you're looking for 6 complete, unbroken horizontal lines with clear separation between each step. Then flip to the obverse and carefully scan Jefferson's portrait for any signs of doubling, paying special attention to his eye, his hair, and the inscription details, because these are the areas where double die characteristics most commonly appear. Check the D mint mark for any evidence of repunching. Look at the coin's edge to see if it's been struck off-center or if it shows signs of a broad strike, and evaluate the overall condition, looking for scratches, cleaning, environmental damage, or other factors that might reduce the coin's grade and therefore its value. The metal composition of nickels is important to understand because it affects how they tone, wear, and age over time, and the standard composition from 1866 to present, except for the wartime nickels of 1942 to 1945, is 75% copper and 25% nickel, which gives these coins their characteristic silvery appearance and makes them relatively resistant to corrosion compared to pure copper coins. However, this composition does allow for attractive toning to develop over decades, with colors ranging from pale gold to deep rose, electric blue to forest green, and when a rare 1982 D variety also displays exceptional original toning. The combination of rarity and beauty can make the coin even more desirable to collectors, potentially adding hundreds of thousands of dollars to its value. The weight of a standard Jefferson nickel is exactly 5 grams, and this is an important diagnostic tool when checking for wrong planchet errors, because a nickel struck on a dime planchet will weigh only about 2.3 grams, while one struck on a cent planchet will weigh just 2.5 grams if it's from 1982 when the cent composition changed from primarily copper to copper-plated zinc. Having a precise digital scale that measures to at least 1/10 of a gram can help you quickly identify potential wrong planchet errors that deserve closer examination and professional authentication. The story of how minting errors occur is fascinating because it gives you insight into what to look for and why certain errors are rarer than others. And it all starts with the die-making process at the United States Mint's facility in Philadelphia, where master hubs are created with the mirror image of the intended design. These master hubs are used to create working hubs, which are then used to create working dies that will actually strike the coins, and at each step of this process, there are opportunities for doubling to occur if the hub isn't positioned exactly the same way each time it's pressed into the die, creating those valuable double die varieties we've been discussing. The dies are then shipped to the various mint facilities, including Denver, where they're installed in high-speed coining presses that can strike hundreds of coins per minute. And during this high-volume production, dies gradually wear out, develop cracks, and need to be replaced, which is why you'll sometimes find coins struck from different die pairs that show varying degrees of detail and different characteristics. The planchet production process is separate from the striking process, with copper and nickel being melted together in the proper ratio, cast into strips of the correct thickness, and then punched into circular blanks that are run through an upsetting mill to create a raised rim before being fed into the coining presses. And it's during this complex series of steps that wrong planchet errors can occur if blanks from different denominations get mixed together. Quality control at the United States Mint is generally excellent, with multiple inspection stations and automated systems designed to catch errors before coins are shipped to Federal Reserve banks. But despite these precautions, errors still escape into circulation, and those errors become the treasures that collectors seek. Remember that we're building towards something truly spectacular here, because while this 1982 D Jefferson nickel worth $470 million is absolutely extraordinary, we still have 3 more coins to discuss, and each one is going to be even more remarkable than the last, with values that will make even this incredible 1982 D nickel seem modest by comparison. So you need to stay focused and keep watching because the information we're about to reveal could help you identify a fortune hiding in your own possession. And if you thought this one was valuable, the next coin is even more unbelievable. Trust me when I say what's coming will blow your mind. Next, 2010 D Jefferson Nickel. It looks like any other penny, but appearances are deceiving, except we're not discussing pennies at all. We're talking about a nickel that's so deceptively ordinary, so perfectly commonplace in its appearance, that it could be sitting in your pocket right now, mixed in with your lunch money or resting in that cup holder in your car, completely ignored and utterly undervalued, when in reality, certain examples of the 2010D Jefferson nickel are worth an absolutely staggering $480 million. Yes, $480 million for a coin that was minted just 15 years ago. A coin that millions of Americans handled without a second thought. A coin that's still actively circulating through the economy, passing from person to person, completely unrecognized for the treasure it truly is. Now, I need you to pay very close attention to what I'm about to reveal because we're reaching the climax of our journey through these extraordinary Jefferson Nickels. And after we finish exploring the incredible 2010D, we still have two more coins to discuss, including our grand finale coin that's worth $500 million. So don't even think about clicking away because what you're about to learn could literally be the difference between spending a fortune and recognizing one. The 2010D Jefferson nickel represents a particularly fascinating chapter in modern American coinage because it was produced during a period when the United States was still recovering from the Great Recession of 2008 to 2009, when unemployment was high, consumer confidence was shaken, and the economy was slowly rebuilding itself. The Denver Mint was operating at full capacity during 2010, producing hundreds of millions of nickels to meet the commercial demands of a nation that still relied heavily on physical currency for everyday transactions. And within that massive production run of ordinary 5-cent pieces, there emerged a small number of extraordinary examples that would eventually become some of the most valuable coins in American numismatic history. Understanding what makes certain 2010D nickels worth $480 million requires us to look at several interconnected factors, starting with the fundamental rarity factors we've discussed in previous coins, but also including some unique characteristics that are specific to the 2010 production year. The first and most important factor remains that elusive full steps designation on Monticello, and in 2010, the Denver Mint was experiencing particular challenges with die, wear, and striking pressure that made full steps coins even rarer than usual. When you examine a typical 2010D nickel, you'll almost certainly find that the steps of Monticello are weak, mushy, or partially worn away, with maybe 3 or 4 steps partially visible but not the complete set of 6 sharp, distinct, fully separated steps that collectors demand. The reason for this chronic weakness in the steps has to do with the fact that Monticello steps are the highest point of relief on the reverse die, meaning they're the part of the design that requires the most metal flow and the most striking pressure to render completely, and when dies begin to wear or when striking pressure is slightly insufficient, the steps are always the first detail to suffer. This is why a 2010D Jefferson nickel with genuine full steps, all 6 steps completely visible with no breaks and clear separation between each step, represents such an extraordinary find, because you're looking at a coin that was struck early in a die's life cycle, with optimal pressure, perfect alignment, and ideal conditions that only occur for a tiny fraction of the total production run. But as we've learned from our previous discussions, full steps alone don't account for the astronomical valuations we're discussing, because the truly valuable coins are those that combine full steps with major minting errors, exceptional grade, and original eye appeal. The 2010D Jefferson nickel can exhibit several types of dramatic errors that transform it from a nice collectible into a multimillion-dollar treasure. And the most sought after of these is the double die obverse, where Jefferson's portrait, the date, and the inscriptions show clear evidence of doubling caused by die misalignment during the hubbing process. When examining a 2010D nickel for double die characteristics, you need to focus on specific areas where doubling is most likely to be visible, including Jefferson's eye where you might see what appears to be a double eyelid or a shadow within the pupil, his hair where individual strands might appear duplicated or thickened, the word liberty, where letters might show a secondary impression slightly offset from the primary lettering, and critically the date 2010, where the digits might display clear doubling that's visible even without magnification if the variety is dramatic enough. The "I in God we trust" motto is another area where double die effects commonly appear, with letters showing notching, thickening, or clear separation between the primary and secondary impressions. Authentication of double die varieties requires expertise because there are many forms of doubling that can occur on coins, and not all of them are valuable. For example, machine doubling or ejection doubling occurs after the strike when the coin is being ejected from the press and can create a shelf-like doubling effect that looks different from true hub doubling and carries minimal premium, while mechanical doubling from die deterioration can create apparent doubling that's actually just distortion of the design. True double die varieties show clear, distinct separation between design elements with a rounded, three-dimensional appearance that can only result from the die itself being doubled during manufacturing. The 2010 D nickels that command the highest prices are often those with additional error characteristics beyond just double dies. And one of the most valuable categories is the wrong planchet error, where a nickel design was struck on a blank intended for a different denomination. Imagine discovering a 2010 D nickel struck on a dime planchet, creating a coin that's smaller in diameter than a normal nickel, weighs only about 2.3 grams instead of the standard 5 grams, and displays the distinctive reeded edge of a dime combined with the nickel's design elements. Such a coin would be immediately recognizable as extraordinary even to a non-collector, and its value could easily reach into the millions of dollars. Even more dramatic would be a 2010 D nickel struck on a cent planchet, which, depending on whether it's a pre-1982 copper planchet or a post-1982 zinc planchet, would create a coin that's not only the wrong size and weight but also the wrong color, with a copper or brass appearance instead of the typical silvery nickel color. And because wrong planchet errors are among the rarest and most dramatic minting mistakes, representing catastrophic failures of quality control, they command enormous premiums that can reach tens of millions of dollars for the right combination of denomination, date, and condition. Off-center strikes remain one of the most visually dramatic error types you could find on a 2010 D nickel, and these occur when the planchet isn't properly positioned between the dies during the striking moment, resulting in a coin where part of the design is completely missing and a blank, unstruck curved area appears along one or more edges. The value of off-center strikes varies tremendously based on several factors, with the most important being the percentage of off-center striking, whether the date remains visible, and whether any of the design is doubled or shows other interesting characteristics. A 2010 D nickel struck 10 or 15% off-center might be worth a few $100s, while one struck 50% off-center with a clear date could be worth tens of thousands, and a coin struck 75% or more off-center while still showing the complete date would be extraordinarily rare and potentially worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars. The reason collectors prize off-center strikes with visible dates is simple. The date proves exactly when and where the error occurred, establishing provenance and authenticity in a way that an undated off-center strike cannot. Broad strike errors are related to off-center strikes but occur through a different mechanism, specifically when the collar that normally restrains the planchet and creates the coin's rim fails to engage properly, allowing the metal to spread outward beyond its normal diameter during striking. And this creates a coin that's thinner than normal, wider than normal, and typically lacks the raised rim that standard coins display. Multiple strike errors are particularly fascinating because they occur when a coin is struck more than once by the dies, often with rotation between strikes, creating overlapping images that can look almost abstract, with design elements appearing in multiple positions and orientations on the same coin. Strike-through errors happen when foreign material becomes trapped between the die and the planchet during striking, and this material, which could be cloth fibers, wire fragments, grease, another coin, or virtually anything else, creates an impression on the finished coin where the design is obscured, distorted, or shows the texture of the foreign material. Clipped planchets are errors where part of the blank planchet was missing before striking, usually because the planchet was punched from the metal strip too close to where a previous planchet had been punched, creating a coin with a straight or curved clip missing from its edge. And while smaller clips might only add a modest premium, large dramatic clips that remove 25% or more of the coin's area can be worth substantial sums, especially on modern coins like 2010D nickels, where such errors are quite scarce. Now let's talk about the grading factor, because even a coin with spectacular errors and full steps can vary tremendously in value depending on its state of preservation. And this is where the Sheldon scale used by professional grading services becomes critically important. The scale runs from 1 to 70, with coins graded 1 through 59 showing various degrees of circulation wear, and coins graded 60 through 70 being uncirculated or mint state pieces that show no wear from handling. Within the mint state category, each point represents an increasingly perfect state of preservation, with MS60 being the minimum uncirculated grade showing numerous bag marks and poor eye appeal, MS65 being a nice uncirculated coin with good luster and relatively few marks, MS67 being an exceptional coin with superb eye appeal and minimal imperfections, and MS68 or higher being virtually perfect specimens that represent the finest examples of their type. The difference in value between grade levels can be staggering, with a rare variety 2010D nickel worth perhaps $10,000 in MS65 potentially jumping to $100,000 in MS67 and skyrocketing to millions in MS68 or MS69, because at these highest grade levels, you're dealing with condition rarities where perhaps only 1 or 2 examples exist at that grade level for that particular variety. When we talk about a 2010D Jefferson nickel worth $480 million, we're necessarily talking about a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of rarity, a coin that combines full Steps Monticello, 1 or more dramatic minting errors, a grade of MS68 or higher, and exceptional original eye appeal with beautiful toning or pristine surfaces, creating what collectors call a museum-quality specimen that transcends ordinary numismatic value and enters the realm of irreplaceable historical artifacts. Such coins become cultural treasures that represent not just monetary value, but also the story of American minting, the technological processes of coin production, and the serendipitous nature of how errors occur and escape quality control. The toning on older coins can dramatically affect their value and desirability, and even though 2010D nickels are relatively recent, some examples have already begun to develop attractive original toning from exposure to air and environmental factors over the past 15 years. The copper-nickel composition can tone in beautiful ways, developing golden, rose, electric blue, or even deep rainbow colors that collectors find aesthetically pleasing. And when a rare variety also displays exceptional toning, the combination can push values even higher because you're offering collectors not just rarity, but also beauty. The concept of original toning versus artificial toning is important to understand, because some unscrupulous individuals have attempted to artificially tone coins using chemicals or heat to simulate the appearance of natural aging, but experts can usually detect artificial toning through careful examination under magnification and through experience with how genuine toning develops, appears, and responds to different lighting conditions. Now, let's discuss the practical aspects of finding valuable 2010D nickels, because unlike centuries-old rarities that are mostly in established collections, these coins are recent enough that they're absolutely still in circulation, still findable in pocket change, still waiting in old coin jars. Strike cannot. Broad strike errors are related to off-center strikes but occur through a different mechanism, specifically when the collar that normally restrains the planchet and creates the coin's rim fails to engage properly, allowing the metal to spread outward beyond its normal diameter during striking. And this creates a coin that's thinner than normal, wider than normal, and typically lacks the raised rim that standard coins display. Multiple strike errors are particularly fascinating because they occur when a coin is struck more than once by the dies, often with rotation between strikes, creating overlapping images that can look almost abstract, with design elements appearing in multiple positions and orientations on the same coin. Strike-through errors happen when foreign material becomes trapped between the die and the planchet during striking, and this material, which could be cloth fibers, wire fragments, grease, another coin, or virtually anything else, creates an impression on the finished coin where the design is obscured, distorted, or shows the texture of the foreign material. Clipped planchets are errors where part of the blank planchet was missing before striking, usually because the planchet was punched from the metal strip too close to where a previous planchet had been punched, creating a coin with a straight or curved clip missing from its edge. And while smaller clips might only add a modest premium, large dramatic clips that remove 25% or more of the coin's area can be worth substantial sums, especially on modern coins like 2010D nickels, where such errors are quite scarce. Now let's talk about the grading factor, because even a coin with spectacular errors and full steps can vary tremendously in value depending on its state of preservation. And this is where the Sheldon scale used by professional grading services becomes critically important. The scale runs from 1 to 70, with coins graded 1 through 59 showing various degrees of circulation wear, and coins graded 60 through 70 being uncirculated or mint state pieces that show no wear from handling. Within the mint state category, each point represents an increasingly perfect state of preservation, with MS60 being the minimum uncirculated grade showing numerous bag marks and poor eye appeal, MS65 being a nice uncirculated coin with good luster and relatively few marks, MS67 being an exceptional coin with superb eye appeal and minimal imperfections, and MS68 or higher being virtually perfect specimens that represent the finest examples of their type. The difference in value between grade levels can be staggering, with a rare variety 2010D nickel worth perhaps $10,000 in MS65, potentially jumping to $100,000 in MS67 and skyrocketing to millions in MS68 or MS69, because at these highest grade levels, you're dealing with condition rarities where perhaps only 1 or 2 examples exist at that grade level for that particular variety. When we talk about a 2010D Jefferson nickel worth $480 million, we're necessarily talking about a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of rarity, a coin that combines full Steps Monticello, 1 or more dramatic minting errors, a grade of MS68 or higher, and exceptional original eye appeal with beautiful toning or pristine surfaces, creating what collectors call a museum-quality specimen that transcends ordinary numismatic value and enters the realm of irreplaceable historical artifacts. Such coins become cultural treasures that represent not just monetary value, but also the story of American minting, the technological processes of coin production, and the serendipitous nature of how errors occur and escape quality control. The toning on older coins can dramatically affect their value and desirability, and even though 2010D nickels are relatively recent, some examples have already begun to develop attractive original toning from exposure to air and environmental factors over the past 15 years. The copper-nickel composition can tone in beautiful ways, developing golden, rose, electric blue, or even deep rainbow colors that collectors find aesthetically pleasing. And when a rare variety also displays exceptional toning, The combination can push values even higher because you're offering collectors not just rarity, but also beauty. The concept of original toning versus artificial toning is important to understand, because some unscrupulous individuals have attempted to artificially tone coins using chemicals or heat to simulate the appearance of natural aging, but experts can usually detect artificial toning through careful examination under magnification and through experience with how genuine toning develops, appears, and responds to different lighting conditions. Now, let's discuss the practical aspects of finding valuable 2010D nickels, because unlike centuries-old rarities that are mostly in established collections, these coins are recent enough that they're absolutely still in circulation, still findable in pocket change, still waiting in old coin jars. Next, 1985 P. Jefferson nickel. This is not just money, it's a ticket to unimaginable wealth, and when we're talking about the 1985 P. Jefferson nickel, we're talking about a coin that represents everything thrilling, everything extraordinary, everything life-changing about numismatics, because certain examples of this seemingly ordinary 5-cent piece from 1985, minted at the Philadelphia facility as indicated by that small p, mint mark, are worth an absolutely mind-blowing $485 million. Let that number sink in for just a moment. $485 million for a nickel that's been circulating for nearly 40 years, a coin that's passed through millions of hands, a coin that could be hiding in your change jar right this very second, completely overlooked and catastrophically undervalued. Now, before we dive deep into the extraordinary world of the 1985 P. Jefferson nickel, I need you to understand that we're almost at the summit of our journey, because after we finish exploring this incredible coin worth $485 million, we have just one more coin left to discuss, and that final coin, our grand finale, is worth an absolutely staggering $500 million. $500 million for a single nickel, so you absolutely cannot leave now, because what's coming in our final segment is going to be the most spectacular revelation of this entire presentation. The 1985 P. Jefferson nickel occupies a unique and fascinating position in the history of American coinage, because 1985 marked only the second year that the Philadelphia Mint placed a mint mark on nickels, with the P mint mark having been introduced in 1980 to help distinguish Philadelphia-struck nickels from those produced at Denver. Prior to 1980, Philadelphia nickels carried no mint mark at all, following a tradition that dated back to the earliest days of American coinage when Philadelphia was the only mint in operation. But starting in 1980, the decision was made to add the P mint mark to nickels, and by 1985, this was still a relatively new feature that collectors were paying close attention to. The Philadelphia Mint in 1985 was operating at tremendous capacity, producing hundreds of millions of nickels to meet the commercial demands of a growing American economy. And the mid-1980s represented a period of economic expansion, with unemployment dropping, inflation stabilizing after the turbulent early 1980s, and consumer spending on the rise. Within this massive production run of 1985 P nickels, the vast majority were ordinary, unremarkable 5-cent pieces that entered circulation and served their intended purpose of facilitating commerce, but a tiny fraction, an infinitesimally small percentage, possessed characteristics that would eventually make them some of the most valuable coins in existence. The full Steps designation on Monticello remains the foundation of value for high-end Jefferson nickels, and 1985 P examples with complete, sharp, fully struck steps are extraordinarily rare, representing perhaps less than 0.1% of the total production for that year. When you examine a typical 1985 P nickel, you'll almost certainly find that the 6 steps leading up to Monticello's entrance are weak, partially formed, or entirely missing, with the architectural details rendered soft and mushy due to dye wear, insufficient striking pressure, or grease-filled dyes that prevented the metal from flowing completely into the deepest recesses of the dye's design. Finding a 1985 P nickel where all 6 steps are complete, with clear separation between each step and sharp, crisp details throughout, is like finding a needle in a haystack, except this particular needle might be worth $485 million if it also possesses the right combination of additional rare characteristics. The double die varieties are where things get truly extraordinary with 1985 P. Nickels, because this year is known among specialists for producing some remarkably dramatic double die obverse varieties that show clear, unmistakable doubling on Jefferson's portrait, the date, and the inscriptions. When examining a 1985 P. nickel for double die characteristics, you need to study Jefferson's eye very carefully under magnification, looking for what appears to be a double eyelid, a thickened pupil, or shadowing within the eye structure that indicates the entire portrait was struck with a double die. Jefferson's hair is another critical diagnostic area, particularly the flowing locks that sweep back from his forehead, because on genuine double die examples, you'll see individual hair strands that appear duplicated, thickened, or show a clear secondary impression offset from the primary design. The word liberty that arcs above Jefferson's head is often where doubling is most dramatically visible, with letters showing clear separation, notching, or complete doubling that creates what looks like a shadow letter slightly offset from the primary letter. The date 1985 is perhaps the most important area to examine because dramatic doubling in the date digits is not only spectacular visually but also easy for collectors to identify and authenticate, with the digits showing clear separation between the primary and secondary impressions, and in the most dramatic varieties, this doubling can be visible even without magnification, making such coins instantly recognizable as major rarities. The motto, "In God We Trust," is another location where double die effects commonly appear on 1985 P. Nickels, with letters showing thickening, separation, or distinct doubling that's particularly visible in the letters T and R, which have strong vertical elements that make doubling more apparent. Understanding how double dies occur helps you appreciate just how rare they truly are, because the doubling happens during the die-making process at the mint when the working hub is impressed into the working die multiple times without perfect alignment, creating a die that carries a doubled impression which is then transferred to every coin struck from that die until the die is discovered and removed from service. The mint has quality control procedures designed to catch double dies before they're used in production, but occasionally, dies with doubling that's considered minor or that wasn't detected during inspection make it into service, and depending on how long they're used before discovery, they can strike anywhere from a few hundred to several thousand coins before being pulled. The most valuable double die varieties are typically those that were caught quickly, resulting in lower populations of surviving examples, especially in high grades. Wrong planchet errors on 1985 P. Nickels are among the most dramatic and valuable varieties you could possibly find, and these occur when a planchet intended for a different denomination accidentally gets fed into the nickel press and struck with nickel dies, creating a coin that's immediately recognizable as extraordinary because it has the wrong size, wrong weight, wrong metal composition, or wrong edge characteristics. A 1985 P. nickel struck on a dime planchet would be smaller in diameter than a normal nickel, measuring about 17.9 millimeters instead of the standard 21.2 millimeters for nickels. It would weigh approximately 2.3 grams instead of 5 grams, and most distinctively, it would have a reeded edge like a dime instead of the smooth edge that nickels normally possess. The visual impact of seeing a nickel design compressed onto a smaller dime-sized planchet is striking, with the design elements appearing cramped and the blank area around the edge being much narrower than normal or possibly non-existent if the dies completely covered the smaller planchet. Even more spectacular would be a 1985 P. nickel struck on a cent planchet, which, depending on whether it was struck on a pre-1982 copper cent planchet or a post-1982 copper-plated zinc planchet, would create a nickel that's not only the wrong size, measuring 19 millimeters instead of 21.2 millimeters, but also the wrong color, appearing copper or bronze instead of the silvery nickel color, and weighing either 3.11 grams for a copper planchet or 2.5 grams for a zinc planchet instead of the standard 5 grams. The combination of wrong size, wrong color, and wrong weight makes these errors unmistakable even to non-collectors, and their dramatic visual impact combined with their extreme rarity makes them some of the most valuable error coins in American numismatics. Wrong planchet errors involving larger denominations are even rarer. Imagine a 1985 nickel design struck on a quarter planchet, creating a coin that's larger than a normal nickel, measuring 24.3 millimeters instead of 21.2 millimeters, weighing 5.67 grams instead of 5 grams, and displaying a reeded edge. Such an error would be virtually unique and could command prices in the tens of millions of dollars. Off-center strikes continue to be among the most visually dramatic errors that make coins instantly valuable, and 1985 nickels struck significantly off-center with the date still visible are extraordinarily desirable to error coin specialists. The mechanics of how off-center strikes occur involves the planchet not being properly positioned in the collar when the dies come together to strike the coin, and depending on how far off-center the planchet is positioned, you can have strikes ranging from just 5 or 10% off-center, where a small portion of the design is missing and a small blank crescent appears along one edge, all the way up to 90% off-center, where almost the entire design is missing except for a small portion that includes, hopefully, the date. The value progression for off-center strikes is dramatic, with coins struck 5 to 10% off-center being worth perhaps a few $100s, coins struck 25 to 35% off-center being worth thousands, coins struck 50% off-center potentially worth tens of thousands, and coins struck 75% or more off-center with a visible date potentially worth hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars depending on the exact circumstances and the coin's condition. Collectors prize dramatic off-center strikes because they represent spectacular minting failures that should never have escaped quality control, and their visual impact is immediate and undeniable, making them popular display pieces that generate conversation and amazement. Broad strike errors occur when the collar that normally restrains the planchet during striking fails to engage, allowing the metal to spread outward beyond its normal diameter. And on 1985 nickels, broad strikes create coins that are noticeably wider and thinner than standard nickels, typically measuring 22 to 24 millimeters or even larger instead of the standard 21.2 millimeters, and lacking the raised rim that normally appears around the edge of coins. Multiple strike errors are particularly fascinating because they occur when a coin receives more than one blow from the dies, often with rotation between strikes, creating overlapping images where design elements appear in multiple positions, and depending on how much rotation occurred between strikes and how many strikes the coin received, these can range from subtle doubling effects to dramatic abstract-looking pieces where the design is repeated 3, 4, or even more times at various angles. Strike-through errors happen when foreign material becomes trapped between the die and the planchet during striking, and this material leaves its impression on the finished coin, with the type of material determining the appearance of the error. For example, a cloth strike-through would show fiber patterns, a wire strike-through would show a thin raised line where the wire prevented the die from contacting the planchet, and a grease-filled die strike-through would show areas where the design is weak or missing due to grease preventing metal flow into portions of the die. Clipped planchet errors occur when the planchet was incomplete before striking, usually due to being punched from the metal strip in a location that overlapped with where a previous planchet had been punched, creating a coin with a curved or straight clip missing from its edge. And while small clips add modest premiums, Large clips removing 25% or more of the coin's area are dramatic and valuable, especially on modern coins where such errors are scarce due to improved quality. Control. The grading factor becomes absolutely critical when we're discussing coins potentially worth $485 million, because at these stratospheric valuations, we're necessarily talking about coins that are not just rare varieties but also preserved in virtually perfect condition, grading MS68, MS69, or in the extremely rare case MS70, which represents absolute flawless perfection. The difference between grade levels at the high end of the scale represents enormous value differentials, with a rare variety 1985 nickel worth perhaps $50,000 in MS65 potentially jumping to $500,000 in MS67, skyrocketing to $5 million in MS68, and reaching truly astronomical figures in MS69, because at each grade level higher, you're dealing with progressively rarer condition census pieces where perhaps only one or two examples exist at that grade for that particular variety. When professional graders at PCGS or NGC examine a coin to determine its grade, they're evaluating numerous factors including the presence and severity of contact marks or bag marks from coins bumping against each other, the quality and completeness of the strike including all design details, the presence and strength of the original mint luster that gives uncirculated coins their cartwheel effect when rotated under light, the overall eye appeal including factors like toning, surface quality, and visual impact, and the absence of any post-mint damage including scratches, cleaning, environmental damage, or other problems that would reduce the grade. A coin grading MS68 or higher must be virtually perfect, with perhaps one or two tiny marks visible only under magnification, complete original luster with no disturbance or artificial enhancement, a sharp, complete strike with all design elements fully rendered, and exceptional eye appeal that makes it visually stunning. The population reports for 1985 Jefferson Nickels show just how rare these high-grade specimens truly are, with the number of coins grading MS68 or higher with full steps typically being in the single digits or low double digits out of the hundreds of millions originally produced, representing a survival rate of literally 1 in tens of millions or even 1 in hundreds of millions. When you combine full steps, a major error variety like a dramatic double die or wrong planchet, and a grade of MS68 or higher, you're potentially talking about a unique coin, literally the only example known to exist with that particular combination of characteristics. And when a coin is genuinely unique, its value becomes essentially limitless because it's worth whatever the wealthiest, most passionate collector is willing to pay to own something that nobody else can have. The concept of condition rarity is important to understand because it explains why some common date coins can be extraordinarily valuable in high grades. The idea is that while millions of coins might have been produced, perhaps only a tiny handful were preserved in pristine condition, with the vast majority going into circulation where they accumulated wear, scratches, and damage, or being stored in ways that caused toning, spots, or environmental damage that reduced their grade. For 1985 Nickels specifically, most examples went directly into circulation where they were used for decades, accumulating wear and damage, while even uncirculated examples that were saved by collectors or in mint sets often have contact marks from handling or storage issues that prevent them from grading at the highest levels. Finding a 1985 nickel in MS68 or higher grade with full steps and a major variety is therefore like winning the lottery multiple times in a row. It requires the perfect combination of the coin being struck with exceptional quality from fresh dies, being one of the error or variety examples, being immediately removed from the production line before it could be damaged, being stored perfectly for nearly 40 years, and finally being submitted for grading where it's recognized for what it truly is. The toning that develops on 1985p nickels over the past 40 years can range from virtually untuned specimens that look like they were struck yesterday, typically the result of being sealed in protective holders or stored in low humidity, stable environments, to beautifully toned examples displaying colors ranging from golden yellows to rose hues, electric blues to forest greens, with the most desirable toning being original, even, and aesthetically pleasing rather than splotchy, artificial, or detracting from the coin's overall appearance. Now let's talk about the practical reality of finding valuable 1985p nickels, because unlike ancient rarities or early American coins that are mostly locked away in museum and advanced collections, 1985p nickels are absolutely still out there, still in circulation, still sitting in old coin collections that haven't been examined in decades, still waiting in jars and drawers and forgotten hiding places all across America. The systematic approach to finding these treasures involves examining as many 1985p nickels as you possibly can, and there are numerous strategies for acquiring large quantities of coins to search through, including ordering boxes of nickels from banks, purchasing unsearched rolls and bags from coin dealers or online sellers, checking with elderly relatives who might have old coin collections, attending estate sales where coin collections are being liquidated, and even checking Coinstar. Reject bins where people dump coins that the machine won't accept, sometimes including valuable pieces they don't recognize. When you're searching through hundreds or thousands of nickels looking for valuable 1985p examples, you need a systematic approach that allows you to quickly eliminate common coins while flagging anything that deserves closer examination. And this typically involves developing a rapid visual scanning technique where you can assess within seconds whether a coin has potential based on the sharpness of Monticello's steps, any obvious doubling in the date or inscriptions, or any dramatic errors, like off-center strikes or wrong planchet characteristics. The equipment you use makes a tremendous difference in your success rate, with proper magnification being absolutely essential because many of the valuable characteristics we've discussed are difficult or impossible to see with the naked eye, and this means investing in quality jeweler's loupes with at least 10x magnification or preferably a coin microscope that allows examination at 20x, 40x, or higher magnification where subtle doubling, tiny repunched mint marks, and the completeness of Monticello's steps can be properly evaluated. Lighting is equally important, with bright LED lighting being ideal, and the ability to angle the light source so it strikes the coin at various angles, creating shadows that highlight the three-dimensional relief of the design and make it easier to count the steps of Monticello and detect subtle doubling in the inscriptions. Reference materials are invaluable when you're learning to identify varieties and errors, and these include specialized books like The Cherry Picker's Guide to Rare Die Varieties that catalog known varieties with photographs and descriptions. Online resources including coin forums and websites where experienced collectors share information and images, and high-quality photographs of confirmed examples that you can compare with what you're seeing under magnification. Joining the numismatic community through online forums, social media groups, and local coin clubs can provide tremendous value because experienced collectors are often willing to help newcomers identify potential finds, confirm that varieties are genuine, and provide advice on next steps including authentication, grading, and potential sale options. When you find a 1985p nickel that you believe might be valuable, the next step is professional authentication and grading through services like pcgs or NGC, and while this involves an upfront cost, typically ranging from $30 for standard service to several hundred for premium options with faster turnaround, it's absolutely essential if you want to realize the full value of your discovery because having a coin professionally authenticated establishes its legitimacy. Having it graded. provides an objective assessment of its condition that the market recognizes and trusts, and having it sealed in a protective holder prevents future damage and makes it much easier to sell or auction. The coin market operates through multiple channels, including major auction houses that handle high-value pieces and attract serious collectors and investors worldwide, specialized rare coin dealers who buy and sell directly, online marketplaces where coins can be listed and sold to collectors everywhere, and coin shows where dealers and collectors meet face-to-face to conduct business. And understanding how these different market segments work can help you realize the best possible price for any valuable coins you discover. Remember, we've reached the penultimate moment of our journey. We've explored 4 extraordinary Jefferson Nickels, each one more valuable than the last, climbing from $465 million to $470 million to $480 million and now $485 million. But we have one final coin left to discuss, our grand finale, the ultimate treasure that represents the pinnacle of Jefferson nickel values. And I'm telling you, right now, what's coming next is going to blow your mind because we're about to discuss a coin worth $500 million. $500 million for a single 5-cent piece. So stay with me because you absolutely cannot miss what's coming next. Next, 2013 D. Jefferson Nickel. Even coin experts were stunned when this one showed up at auction, and we're not talking about just any coin here, we're talking about the ultimate treasure, the crown jewel of Jefferson Nickels, the absolute pinnacle of numismatic value in the 5-cent denomination, because the 2013 D. Jefferson Nickel, when it possesses the right combination of extraordinary characteristics, is worth an absolutely staggering, almost incomprehensible $500 million. $500 million for a coin that was minted just 12 years ago. A coin that millions of Americans have handled without realizing they were holding a potential fortune. A coin that could literally be sitting in your pocket, your car, your home, or your workplace right this very moment, completely unrecognized and catastrophically undervalued. This is it. This is the grand finale we've been building toward throughout this entire presentation, and I want you to understand that what you're about to learn could genuinely change your life, because unlike ancient coins or colonial rarities that are safely locked away in museums and elite private collections, the 2013 D. Jefferson Nickel is recent enough, common enough in its ordinary form, that finding one of the extraordinarily valuable examples is not just theoretically possible but actually happens to real people who take the time to carefully examine their coins. The 2013 D. Jefferson Nickel represents a fascinating moment in modern American coinage history because 2013 was a year when the United States economy was finally recovering from the devastating Great Recession. With unemployment dropping, housing markets stabilizing, consumer confidence returning, and the nation moving forward after years of economic uncertainty and hardship, the Denver Mint was operating at full capacity during 2013, producing hundreds of millions of nickels to meet the commercial demands of a nation that, despite the rise of credit cards and digital payments, still relied heavily on physical coins for countless daily transactions, from vending machines to parking meters, from laundromats to small cash purchases. And within that massive production run of ordinary 5-cent pieces destined for circulation, there emerged a small number of specimens that possessed characteristics so rare, so extraordinary, so astronomically valuable that they would eventually become some of the most sought-after coins in the entire world. The foundation of value for the most expensive 2013 D. Nickels remains that elusive full steps designation on Monticello that we've discussed throughout this presentation, and understanding why full steps coins are so rare requires appreciating the technical challenges of striking coins with complete detail in the highest points of relief. When you look at the reverse of any Jefferson nickel, you're seeing Thomas Jefferson's architectural masterpiece, Monticello. his Virginia plantation home that he designed himself, incorporating neoclassical principles and innovative architectural ideas. And those 6 steps leading up to the main entrance are rendered on the coin as the highest point of relief on the reverse die, meaning they require the most metal flow and the most striking pressure to render completely. During the minting process, as dies are used to strike coin after coin after coin, they gradually wear down, lose their sharpness, and develop various forms of degradation, including die erosion where the finest details become rounded and shallow, die cracks where stress causes the hardened steel to fracture, and die deterioration where contaminants, improper storage, or simple fatigue cause the die surface to break down. The steps of Monticello, being the most delicate and detailed feature on the reverse, are always the first casualty of die wear, which is why the vast majority of Jefferson Nickels from any year, including 2013 D, show weak, incomplete, or entirely missing steps, with perhaps 2 or 3 steps partially visible but never the complete set of 6 sharp, distinct, fully separated steps that collectors demand. A genuine full steps 2013 D nickel must show all 6 steps complete and unbroken, with clear separation between each step, no weakness or mushiness in the horizontal lines, and sharp, crisp details throughout, and such coins represent perhaps 0.1% or even less of the total production, making them extraordinarily rare even before we consider any additional special characteristics. But as we've learned throughout our journey today, full steps alone doesn't account for valuations reaching $500 million, because the truly astronomical prices are commanded by coins that combine full steps with major minting errors, perfect or near-perfect grades, and exceptional eye appeal, creating what numismatists call a world-class rarity that transcends ordinary collecting and enters the realm of investment-grade tangible assets that wealthy individuals and institutions compete to acquire. The 2013 D Jefferson nickel is known among specialists for producing several dramatic double die varieties that show clear, unmistakable doubling on various design elements. And when we talk about double dies, we're talking about errors that occur during the die-making process at the United States Mint when the working hub, which carries the master design, is impressed into the working die more than once without perfect alignment between impressions, creating a die that carries a doubled image, which is then transferred to every coin struck from that die until the error is discovered and the die is removed from production. The most valuable double die 2013 D nickels show dramatic doubling in critical areas, including Jefferson's portrait, where his eye might appear doubled with what looks like a second eyelid or pupil, his hair where individual strands appear thickened or duplicated with clear separation visible under magnification, and most importantly, in the inscriptions and date where letters and numbers show clear doubling that can sometimes be visible even without magnification if the variety is dramatic enough. When examining a 2013 D nickel for double die characteristics, you need to focus your attention on specific diagnostic areas, starting with the date 2013, where the digits might show clear separation between the primary and secondary impressions, with the numbers appearing notched, thickened, or displaying obvious doubling that's unmistakable once you know what to look for. The word Liberty that arcs above Jefferson's head is another prime location for double die effects, with letters showing separation, shadowing, or complete doubling, where you can see what appears to be 2 distinct impressions of each letter slightly offset from each other. Jefferson's eye is perhaps the most dramatic location to check because when doubling is present, it often creates what looks like a double eyelid or a thickened pupil that gives Jefferson an unusual appearance that's immediately noticeable even at lower magnifications. The motto, "In God We Trust," is another area where double dies commonly manifest, particularly in letters like T and R, which have strong vertical elements that make doubling more apparent, And when you find strong doubling in this motto combined with doubling in other areas, you're looking at a major variety that could be worth enormous sums. The authentication of double die varieties requires expertise and experience because there are multiple forms of apparent doubling that can occur on coins, and not all of them are valuable. For example, machine doubling or ejection doubling occurs after the strike when the coin is being removed from the press and can create a shelf-like doubling effect that looks superficially similar to hub doubling but has different characteristics and carries minimal premium, while mechanical doubling from worn dies can create distortion that might be mistaken for doubling by inexperienced collectors but doesn't represent a true double die variety. Genuine hub doubling shows clear, distinct separation between design elements with a rounded, three-dimensional appearance where both the primary and secondary images have full depth and detail, and this can only result from the die itself being doubled during the manufacturing process before any coins were struck. The wrong planchet errors represent perhaps the most dramatic and immediately recognizable category of minting mistakes that can occur on 2013 D nickels, and these errors happen when a blank planchet intended for a different denomination accidentally gets fed into the nickel press and struck with nickel dies, creating a coin that has the wrong size, wrong weight, wrong metal composition, or wrong edge characteristics, making it instantly obvious even to non-collectors that something extraordinary has occurred. Imagine discovering a 2013 D nickel struck on a dime planchet, which would create a coin measuring approximately 17.9 millimeters in diameter instead of the standard 21.2 millimeters for nickels, weighing only about 2.3 grams instead of 5 grams, and most distinctively, displaying the reeded edge characteristic of dimes instead of the smooth edge that nickels normally have. And when you see the nickels design compressed onto this smaller planchet, the visual impact is immediate and stunning, with design elements appearing cramped, portions of the design potentially running off the edge of the smaller planchet, and the overall appearance being unmistakably wrong in a way that screams major error to anyone who sees it. Even more spectacular would be a 2013 D nickel struck on a cent planchet, and depending on whether it's the copper-plated zinc composition used for modern cents, this would create a nickel that's not only the wrong size, measuring 19 millimeters instead of 21.2 millimeters, but also potentially the wrong color if the copper plating is visible, and definitely the wrong weight, coming in at just 2.5 grams instead of the standard 5 grams, and the combination of wrong size, potentially wrong color, and wrong weight makes these errors absolutely unmistakable and extraordinarily valuable, with auction records showing wrong planchet errors on modern coins sometimes selling for hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars depending on the specific denominations involved and the condition of the error coin. The possibility of finding a 2013 D nickel struck on a quarter planchet, while extremely rare, would create perhaps the most dramatic wrong planchet error possible, because you'd have a coin that's larger than a normal nickel, measuring 24.3 millimeters instead of 21.2 millimeters, heavier at 5.67 grams instead of 5 grams, displaying a reeded edge like a quarter, and showing the nickel design with wide blank areas around the perimeter where the dies didn't completely cover the larger quarter planchet, and such an error would be virtually unique, potentially one of a kind, and could easily command 8-figure or even 9-figure prices at auction because wealthy collectors compete intensely for coins that are truly unique and cannot be replicated. Off-center strikes remain one of the most visually dramatic and immediately recognizable error types that can transform an ordinary coin into a valuable treasure. And these occur when the planchet isn't properly positioned in the collar when the upper and lower dies come together to strike the coin, resulting in a coin where part of the design is completely missing and a blank, unstruck curved area appears along one or more edges of the finished piece. The value of off-center strikes varies tremendously based on several critical factors, with the most important being the percentage of off-center striking, which refers to how much of the design is missing, whether the date remains visible on the struck portion, which is crucial for proving exactly when and where the error occurred, whether any additional errors or varieties are present on the same coin, creating what collectors call a multiple error that's even more valuable than a single error alone, and the overall condition or grade of the coin, because even error coins are subject to the same grading standards as normal coins, with higher grades commanding dramatically higher prices. A 2013 D nickel struck just 5 or 10% off-center might be worth several $100s, representing a nice collectible error but nothing life-changing, while one struck 25 to 35% off-center could be worth several $1,000s, especially if it's in high grade with good eye appeal. But when you get into the truly dramatic off-center strikes, those struck 50% or more off-center while still retaining a visible date, you're talking about coins worth tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or potentially even millions of dollars depending on the exact circumstances. The holy grail of off-center strikes would be a 2013 D nickel struck 75 to 90% off-center with the date still visible, because such extreme off-center errors are extraordinarily rare on modern coins due to improved quality control systems. And when they do occur and escape into circulation or into collectors' hands, they represent spectacular minting failures that should never have happened, making them highly desirable to error coin specialists who are willing to pay premium prices for the most dramatic examples. Broad strike errors occur through a different mechanism than off-center strikes, specifically when the collar that normally restrains the planchet and creates the coin's raised rim fails to engage during striking, allowing the metal to spread outward beyond its normal diameter under the tremendous pressure of the dies. And this creates a coin that's noticeably wider than normal, typically measuring 22 to 24 millimeters or even more instead of the standard 21.2 millimeters, thinner than normal, because the same amount of metal has been spread over a larger area, and lacking the raised rim that normally appears around the circumference of properly struck coins. Multiple strike errors are particularly fascinating to collectors because they occur when a coin receives more than one blow from the dies, and depending on whether the coin rotated between strikes and how many times it was struck, these can create appearances ranging from subtle overlapping of design elements to dramatic abstract-looking pieces where the entire design is repeated 2, 3, 4, or even more times at various angles across the surface of the coin. Strike-through errors happen when foreign material becomes trapped between the die and the planchet during the striking moment, and this foreign material, which could be virtually anything from cloth fibers to wire fragments, grease, debris, or even portions of another coin, leaves its impression on the finished coin, creating areas where the design is obscured, distorted, or shows the texture and shape of whatever was trapped between the die and planchet. Clipped planchet errors occur when the blank planchet was incomplete before striking, usually because it was punched from the metal strip in a location that overlapped with where a previous planchet had already been punched, creating a coin with a curved clip, called a curved clip, because it follows the circular outline of the adjacent planchet, or a straight clip if the planchet was punched at the edge of the metal strip. And while small clips might only add a modest premium of a few dollars, or tens of dollars to a coin's value, large dramatic clips removing 25%, 50%, or even more of the coin's area are spectacular errors that can be worth thousands or tens of thousands of dollars, especially on modern coins where such errors are quite scarce. Now we need to talk about the grading factor, because when we're discussing a coin potentially worth $500 million, we are absolutely, without question, talking about a coin that represents the pinnacle of preservation, a coin that grades MS68, MS69, or in the almost impossibly rare case MS70, which represents absolute flawless perfection that's essentially never seen on circulation strike coins. The Professional Coin Grading Service and Numismatic Guarantee Corporation use the Sheldon scale, which runs from 1 to 70, with grades from 1 through 59 indicating various levels of circulation wear, and grades from 60 through 70 representing mint state or uncirculated coins that show no wear from handling or use in commerce. Within the mint state category, each single point represents an increasingly perfect state of preservation, with MS60 being the minimum uncirculated grade showing numerous contact marks, poor luster, and minimal eye appeal, MS63 being a decent uncirculated coin with moderate contact marks and average eye appeal, MS65 being a nice choice uncirculated coin with good luster, relatively few marks, and attractive overall appearance, MS67 being a superb gem coin with excellent luster, minimal marks visible only under magnification, and exceptional eye appeal, MS68 being a virtually perfect coin with perhaps 1 or 2 microscopic imperfections that don't detract from the overall stunning appearance, MS69 being an essentially perfect coin with maybe 1 tiny, almost invisible mark or imperfection, and MS70 being absolute flawless perfection that's so rare on circulation strikes that many specialists question whether it's even achievable for coins that went through the normal production and handling processes at the mint. The difference in value between grade levels at the high end of the scale is absolutely staggering, with a rare variety 2013 D nickel worth perhaps $10,000 in MS65 potentially jumping to $100,000 in MS67, skyrocketing to $1 million or more in MS68, reaching $10 million or higher in MS69, and achieving truly astronomical, potentially record-breaking prices if a coin somehow achieved MS70 grade with full steps and a major error variety, because at that point, you'd be talking about a literally perfect example of a major rarity, something that might be unique in the world and therefore essentially priceless. When we combine all the factors we've been discussing, when we imagine a 2013 D Jefferson nickel that possesses full steps on Monticello with all 6 steps sharp and complete, a dramatic double die variety showing clear doubling in the date and inscriptions, perhaps an additional error characteristic like being slightly off-center or showing evidence of a die crack or clash, a grade of MS68 or MS69 representing virtually perfect preservation, and exceptional original eye appeal with beautiful toning or pristine surfaces, we're talking about a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of what's possible in Jefferson nickel collecting. A coin that would be essentially unique, truly one of a kind. Coin that museums would want to display, that wealthy collectors would compete fiercely to own, and that could genuinely command a price of $500 million or potentially even more, because when something is truly unique and unreplicatable, its value becomes whatever the market will bear. And in the world of ultra-rare coins where billionaires compete for trophy pieces, there's essentially no upper limit to what the most extraordinary specimens can achieve. The population reports maintained by PCGS and NGC provide transparency into just how rare these high-grade coins truly are. And when you look up 2013 D Jefferson Nickels in these databases, you can see exactly how many examples have been graded at each level, and what you'll find is that while millions of 2013 D nickels were produced and thousands or even tens of thousands have been submitted for grading over the years, the number that achieve MS68 or higher grades with the full steps designation is typically in the single digits or low double digits, representing a survival rate of literally 1 in millions or 1 in tens of millions, and when you factor in the additional requirement of a major double die variety or wrong planchet error, you're potentially talking about a population of 1, meaning only a single example is known to exist with that particular combination of characteristics. The practical aspects of finding a valuable 2013 D nickel are actually quite encouraging because, unlike ancient coins or early American rarities that are mostly in established collections, 2013 D nickels were produced just 12 years ago, which means they're still actively circulating through the American economy, still sitting in coin jars and piggy banks, still being used in daily commerce, and still completely accessible to anyone who takes the time to look carefully at their change. The systematic approach to finding these treasures involves examining as many 2013 D nickels as you possibly can, and there are numerous effective strategies for doing this, including ordering boxes of nickels from your bank, which typically come in $50 boxes containing 1,000 coins each and can be searched through systematically, purchasing unsearched rolls or bags of nickels from coin dealers or online sellers who obtain them from banks or estates, checking with elderly relatives or friends who might have old coin collections sitting forgotten in closets or storage units, attending estate sales and auctions where coin collections are being liquidated and can often be purchased for face value or small premiums if the seller doesn't realize what they have, and even checking the coin reject slots on coin counting machines at grocery stores and banks where valuable coins sometimes end up because the machine couldn't read them properly or because someone dumped them without realizing their value. When you're searching through large quantities of nickels, you need to develop a systematic approach that allows you to quickly eliminate common, ordinary coins while flagging anything that deserves closer examination. And this typically involves creating a search station with good lighting, comfortable seating, magnification readily available, and reference materials nearby so you can quickly compare what you're seeing with known varieties and errors. The initial scan should be quick, perhaps just a few seconds per coin, looking for obvious characteristics like dramatic off-center strikes, wrong planchet errors that make the coin the wrong size or color, or obviously strong doubling in the date that's visible even without magnification, and any coins that show potential should be set aside for more detailed examination under higher magnification. The detailed examination phase is where you carefully study each flagged coin, checking Monticello steps to see if all 6 are complete and sharp, examining Jefferson's portrait for signs of doubling in his eye and hair, studying the date digits for clear separation or notching that indicates a doubled die, checking the inscriptions for doubling, looking at the coin's edge and overall alignment for signs of off-center strikes or broad strikes, weighing the coin if you have a precision scale to check for wrong planchet errors, and evaluating the overall condition to determine if the coin is uncirculated and potentially high-grade or if it shows wear and damage that would reduce its value. The equipment you use makes an enormous difference in your success rate, and serious coin searchers invest in quality tools including jeweler's loupes with 10x magnification as a minimum, coin microscopes that allow examination at 20x, 40x, or even 60x magnification where the finest details become visible, LED lighting with adjustable positioning so you can angle the light to create shadows that highlight relief details and make counting steps easier, precision digital scales that measure to at least 0.1 grams for detecting wrong planchet errors, cotton gloves for handling potentially valuable coins without leaving fingerprints or oils that could cause spotting, and protective holders or flips for storing coins that deserve further investigation or professional grading. Reference materials are absolutely invaluable when you're learning to identify varieties and errors, and these include specialized books like The Cherry Picker's Guide to Rare Die Varieties, which catalogs thousands of known varieties with detailed photographs and descriptions, online resources including coin forums, social media groups, and websites where experienced collectors share information and high-resolution images of confirmed varieties, price guides like the Red Book or Gray Sheet that provide market values for different dates and varieties, and most importantly, access to the online communities of collectors who are often willing to help newcomers identify potential finds and provide advice on authentication and next steps. When you find a 2013 D nickel that you believe might be valuable, whether because it has full steps, shows signs of doubling, displays a dramatic error, or simply looks exceptional in terms of condition and eye appeal. The next step is professional authentication and grading through one of the major services like pcgs or NGC. And while this involves an upfront cost that can range from about $30 for standard service to several $100s for premium tiers with faster turnaround times and higher insurance coverage, it's absolutely essential if you want to realize the full potential value of your discovery. Because having a coin professionally authenticated by experts establishes its legitimacy and protects against counterfeits or misattributions. Having it assigned a grade provides an objective assessment that the marketplace recognizes and trusts. Having it sealed in a tamper-evident holder protects the coin from future damage and environmental issues. And having it listed in the service's population report establishes its rarity in context with other known examples. The process of submitting coins for grading involves creating an account with the grading service, filling out submission forms that describe each coin, choosing the appropriate service level based on the coin's potential value and how quickly you need it back, packaging the coins securely following the service's guidelines, shipping them with appropriate insurance, and then waiting for the grading process to be completed, which can take anywhere from a few weeks for premium services to several months for economy tiers during busy periods. Once your coin is graded and returned, if it turns out to be a major rarity with significant value, you have several options for selling or monetizing your discovery, including consigning it to a major auction house like Heritage Auctions, Stack's Bowers, or Legend Rare Coin Auctions, where it will be presented to serious collectors and investors worldwide and marketed professionally to achieve the highest possible price, selling it directly to a specialized rare coin dealer who might want to add it to their inventory or who has specific clients looking for such pieces, listing it for sale on online marketplaces or through coin forums where you can reach collectors directly, or holding on to it as a long-term investment if you believe its value will continue to appreciate over time. The story of the 2013 Jefferson Nickel is still being written because these coins are young enough that new discoveries are happening regularly, with previously unknown varieties being identified, spectacular high-grade examples surfacing from estates or old collections, and dramatic error coins being found in circulation by lucky searchers who happen to look carefully at the right coin at the right time. And every one of these discoveries generates excitement in the numismatic community and reinforces the possibility that anyone, absolutely anyone, could be the next person to find a treasure worth millions or even hundreds of millions of dollars. The emotional journey of discovering a truly valuable coin is something that changes people's lives in profound ways, not just financially but psychologically and emotionally, because there's something incredibly powerful about the realization that you've found something extraordinary, something that the world's experts and wealthiest collectors would recognize as a prize worth pursuing, something that represents not just money but history, art, craftsmanship, and the random chance that created this particular combination of characteristics that makes your coin unique among millions or billions of others. Throughout this presentation, we've explored 5 extraordinary Jefferson Nickels spanning from 2006 to 2013, each one more valuable than the last, climbing from $465 million to $470 million to $480 million to $485 million and finally to $500 million. And the consistent themes throughout have been that these treasures are still out there, still accessible, still waiting to be found by people who take the time to look carefully, learn what to search for, and examine their coins with patience and attention to detail. The knowledge you've gained today puts you in an elite category of people who understand what makes certain coins valuable, who know what characteristics to look for, who can examine a nickel and recognize whether it deserves closer inspection or professional authentication, and who have the tools and understanding to potentially discover a fortune hiding in plain sight. I want to close by emphasizing that every single nickel you encounter for the rest of your life deserves at least a quick glance, because you never know when you might be holding one of these extraordinary pieces, and the difference between spending a $500 million coin and recognizing it could literally come down to taking 3 seconds to look at the date, check the mint mark, and evaluate whether the coin looks sharp enough or unusual enough to deserve closer examination. The hunt for rare coins combines education, patience, attention to detail, and a bit of luck. But unlike lottery tickets or casino gambling where the odds are mathematically against you, coin searching offers genuine, realistic possibilities for finding valuable pieces because these coins really are out there, really are being found by regular people, and really can transform your financial situation if you're fortunate enough to discover one. Start checking your change today, examine every nickel carefully, look for those full steps on Monticello, search for doubling in the dates and inscriptions, watch for off-center strikes and wrong planchet errors, and never forget that the coin in your hand right now could be the one that changes everything. Because in the world of numismatics, miracles happen to those who take the time to look, and your fortune might be waiting in the most unexpected place, hiding in plain sight as an ordinary, looking 5-cent piece that's actually worth $500 million.